see if I can see it on the. There, we're live. I'm gonna look and see if I can see it on the YouTube.
Yep, it's live, Rich.
It's just not going to show me. All right. Well, anyway. No time like the present, huh?
Right on.
All right. You see, everybody can see.
Yep.
All of you.
All good.
All right, going to start with the skew. Since all my skews are sharpened to the same angle, just a minor different profile. I have a little plate set up on my 10-inch whetstone, and it should give me about a 48-degree bevel. Should.
What sharpening system are you using there, Rich?
I'm using the Grizzly. I think it's a 10-inch whetstone. It's like the Tormex whetstone, just a lot cheaper. Or a wet grinder.
Okay.
Part of the secret to using a skew is to keep your skew skewed when you're sharpening it. That way you get a nice curve. If you go on it straight, then of course you'll just have a scraper and not a skew.
Right. Makes sense. Well, that's nice, Rich. You can barely hear the sharpening, but it's
That's good. When I was doing it earlier.
So that with that,
doing it earlier.
Oh, okay. With that wet system, you probably don't have to worry too much about the blade getting hot, right?
No, because it's a slow speed and a wet. Now, it doesn't take off a lot of material really fast, but when you're just doing upkeep, I guess you could say, you don't want it to take off a lot of material very fast anyway.
Right on.
Chisels are too expensive to go through steel for no reason.
Right.
Normally, I don't use my skews on this, and I usually just give them hand honings, but it's been a while, so I figured I'd get them back right.
How often do you sharpen your lathe tools? I imagine you have certain tools you sharpen more than others, but as a general rule, do you sharpen them before each project, or what's your schedule like?
I try to keep them sharp during the turning, and generally you'll have to sharpen the tool a couple times in the turning, unless it's just a really small bowl. It's not something you can. It's not like a bench chisel where you can sharpen it, use it for a couple weeks, maybe put a little hone on it, every now and then. But you go through the edge really quick turning.
Yeah. I typically will go through my regular bench chisels that I use on a regular basis, and you're right. I probably sharpen them once a week, maybe. Or if I'm in a project and I notice my chisel's really dull, I'll stop it, give it a quick once over.
Yeah, quick honing usually works on the bench chisels. I just went through mine, I don't know, like a month ago, and made sure the edge on all of them were really nice. But then it's just a real quick hit with a 1200 grit. You're good with that. Right. And a lot of times with the turning tools, like I said, with the skews particularly, but even the bowl gouges and everything else, My little diamond stone, my little handheld is way over there. I can go grab it. Hang on.
I'm not watching the chat section right now. I'll be back over there in just a second. I'll find. Oh, there it is. Letting some friends know over on Facebook that we're doing a little live hangout.
I'm sorry, what?
Said I was just letting anybody, if anybody's watching, I'm not watching the chat section right now. It's kind of my job. I was just letting some people over on Facebook know that we're having a little live hangout here. I'll be right back to the chat section if anyone's asking questions that I'm missing. Hey, there we go. Hey guys, JP Woodworks, Mitchell, Bailey, how you guys doing?
JP.
Mitchell wants to know if you sharpen your bowl gouge on the whetstone as well.
Absolutely, and I'm just about to start on my most used bowl gouge.
For everyone watching, if you have questions, I'm watching the chat section so I can pass them on to Rich as we're going along here. Rich is doing a demonstration on his this is a grizzly whetstone.
Right.
On his grizzly whetstone. Wait, what is that, Rich?
This is a Tormax. All right, so when you get the Tormax stuff, one of the secrets to keeping a good, I'm going to go to this other screen. One of the secrets to getting a good, consistent edge is making sure you're always at the right angle. So this little jig sets up, you know, depending on the hole you want on your bar. And when these two are flat on your stone, then you know you're at the angle that you want. Like I'm going to be sharpening this one at a, what am I going to sharpen this one at? I don't even know. I'm going to sharpen this one at a 40-degree angle, okay, which on my little cheat sheet here. You see on this one? Not really. So my little cheat sheet tells me 40-degree angle and all the different jig setups.
Very cool. Craig Strickland and Temple Boy Turnings just jumped in. Hi guys, how you doing tonight?
Welcome, gentlemen. So now that I got that set up, I get to pull out my other little honing jig, which is the jig I use to get the profile. It's Tormax also.
You saying
there's a lot of
Tormac?
Yeah.
Or Tormax?
Tormac.
Okay.
Tormek. This is kind of like the I can't even think the name brand. Anyway, there's 100 different jigs out there. This is just the one I prefer to use. It's very consistent. It's very easy. And it doesn't take a whole lot of brain power, which means it works for me.
So it sounds like something I need.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, Izzy, because you're being so kind and helping me out.
Yeah, well, I'm just as excited to be here as anybody else because I don't know. Some people know I'm looking at lathes right now. I'm hoping after the new year I'll be able to jump into the lathe turning world, into the turning world a little bit. So this is
it's addictive, I can tell you. So just for demonstration, I'm going to color the edge on, or the bevel on this one.
Hey, Mark Eaton just joined us. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Rich McNatt is doing a live demonstration on sharpening some lathe tools, and he's using a Grizzly wet grinder and a Tormac sharpening system. And this is actually really cool.
All right, so you can see I colored the bevel, covered the bevel black. Man, that was a tongue twister. Normally I don't do that, but like I said, for demonstration, and when I first started, it's good to do.
So you're just trying to keep a nice, consistent sweep motion across the top there, like same speed, same feed rate, all that's good jazz?
Right. Now you can see it's shiny on this side.
Right.
I hope you can see.
Yeah, we can.
But I'm missing it on this side.
Okay.
And that's due to hand honing. When I hone it with my little card scraper, when I use my little card scraper in the middle of a turning, you know, it kind of throws off the bevel every now and then.
Gotcha. Mark Eaton says he has the same setup. Mark,
Yeah,
how do you like your setup? I'm get as much information about this as I can. So.
now see this, I'm not worried about. I'm not real worried about the bottom of the bevel here, the heel. Right now. There is a time when I worry about that, but on this one I don't, because it doesn't come in contact with the wood.
All right. What's the? Are you putting? I guess how much pressure are you putting down on the blade side of the chisel in order to get your cut?
I'm just laying my hand on there.
So you're not really pushing down hard or anything.
No, not at all. The harder you push, the more steel you're going to remove, and we don't want to remove more than we need to. But I do want to get. It usually doesn't take this long, but like I said, these are all been hand honed for so long that a little time on the wheel is good for it.
Gotcha.
See, so now it's nice and, like I said, not worried about the heel on this one.
Now, is that it? Is that as far as you dress it? Is there a strop system after this, or is that it?
No, that's pretty much all I'll do. When the flute gets pretty nasty, which it is right now, I might put it on my other wheel, which you cannot see down here. You might can see on the other screen.
We can sort of see it. We see the front of it, Rich.
So I have my other buffing wheels down here that I'll put on to polish out the inside. I find that that's not really useful for the most part, unless it's really gummed up, because you're sharpening it so often anyway, that, you know, this edge is always going to be kept clean. As long as this edge is clean,
okay,
then you know you're sharp. I'll scrape out this little pile of sap, but I don't have to do that very often.
Gotcha.
So let's move on. Move on to another bowl gouge, which is I guess I could say the one we just sharpened is considered a long swept-back wing. It is fairly aggressive.
Okay, cool.
Kind of a fingernail looking. Not real good for finish cuts in the bottom of bowls, but great for your rough work.
So it's more of an aggressive for getting a lot of stock return out.
Right.
Okay. Billy McCord just joined us. Hey, Billy. Temple Boy, I see that. Your name is Steve. I'll call you Steve from now on. Sorry. I'm assuming, Steve, that you're a turner given your name.
Temple Boy Turning. I think I follow him. So this is another bowl gouge. It's a 1/2-inch bowl gouge. This is Thompson steel, which is great steel. You don't have to sharpen it near as much as the cheaper stool. Steel, stool, not stool. But anyway, have this set up, and it's going to be, well, I got the jig in the wrong spot. There we go. It's going to be what you consider a standard grind for a bowl gouge. Not a lot of wing, but a decent amount. But a really, really steep flute. This one's going to be, it's probably like a 55-degree angle.
Hey, Rich?
Yes, sir.
Can can we get you to put some marker on there again so we can kind of see how that was very interesting to watch the progression of it.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I can. I will do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McGinn just joined the crew. Hey, Jason, what's up, brother?
It's happening up there in the Great White North. Y'all probably snowed in.
Yeah, for sure. How many people are up in the cold weather right now? See in the comments section how many folks are freezing their rear ends off. Just, you know, if it makes you guys feel any better, it was 80 degrees here today. Which is, you know, I know, don't get mad at me. I don't like it. I'd rather be in the freezing cold weather. Reading about program apps. Good job, Jason. Awesome. Billy says it's 19 up there. That's Billy's up in Ohio. Billy, am I right? It's you're in Ohio, right? Or is it Indiana? I can never remember. Ireland is pretty cold. Steve's from Ireland. All right, cool.
Yeah, I bet he's another ginger then.
Eric Snell says they're snowed in the Boston area. Randall says it sucks in Rockford, Illinois.
Now this one too, I've hand honed so much. It's gonna take a minute to put an edge to get the edge right, to get the flute right.
I think every one of your viewers except for me are in cold country. Because I'm getting comments like it's 27 degrees and below. Billy's.
I got 28 at my house right now.
You got 28. It's nice and warm in South Florida. Yeah, if I was home, I'm from the UP, Upper Michigan, or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If I was home right now, I'd be under 3 feet of snow and about 30 below zero. Funny, Jason.
Now, unlike the last one, the last tool we sharpened, I am worried about the heel on this one. So I want this to be clean all the way across, because the heel on this does actually contact the wood on occasion when you're at the bottom of a bowl.
Okay.
So we want that lower, and in fact, I'm going to actually slide up a little bit to make sure that's a little lower than the cutting edge. This is not quite a bottom feeder, like a really tight turn, but it'll get in there pretty well.
Rich, what's your take on these the carbide turning tools? You know, the carbide tips that you can simply turn when they get dull. What's your take on those?
I have a couple. I don't much like them. They don't feel right to me in my hand. They don't act right. I learned on standard tools, so for me they're not good. Now they do have their purposes. They can remove a lot of material really quick, and I do have some hollowing gouges, like my gooseneck gouges, that are carbide tip. So now I've slid this up so I can bring the tool up more, which will take care of the heel.
Okay.
It has a little, you can see without me killing my. So this little knob here, it has a dead stop. It's this stop what gives you your main bevel. You can slide this up, which will get rid of the heel. And right now I want to get rid of that heel.
Right on. All right. B. Blair says, "Hey, Blair."
I didn't hear you. What?
I said B. Blair said, "Hey, Rich and Izzy." He's from South Florida. 78 degrees down there today. We win today. We tipped the scale at 80 today.
That's insane, man.
Rich from Steve from Temple Boy Turnings. Steve from Temple Boy Turnings asked, Rich, do you find it hard to remember to use the whole face of the stone so as to not make a groove? I'm sure you understand that. I don't.
No. I mean, yes and no, depending on the size tool I have. Hang on just a minute.
Steve said, Izzy said the C word, no carbide.
Yeah, I don't, well, like I said, I mean, they have their purpose. They just don't have a real big one for me. The small tools, I find it difficult to, make sure I use it all. The grizzly stone is very soft, so you're going to get an edge in it, a groove in it anyway. Prior to the show, I had just flattened it, so it's not a real big issue. But yeah, you're going to get a groove in it no matter what you do.
How often do you have to flatten the stone, and how long does that take?
I'll flatten the stone about, it's probably twice a month. I'll flatten the stone.
Okay.
It's not very often, and again, that depends on what I'm sharpening.
Now you sharpen your bench chisels on there as well, do you? Don't you?
I do, yes, sir.
All right. Now I use a round system as well. Does it after a while, do you get that convex shape in them, or do you just hit the edge with them and flatten the rest of it out on steel?
No, I prefer the hollow grind on the chisels, because that way you're not trying to make a mirror polish on the whole thing. You're only polishing the front edge.
Right.
It just, that and the micro bevel. And this is such a big wheel that
it's not much of a hollow grind.
Yeah, it doesn't give you much of a hollow grind.
Was that a 10-inch wheel or 8-inch wheel? What size is that? You know?
It's a 10-inch, or started out being a 10-inch wheel. It's probably not that yet. So yeah, like I said, such a big wheel, you don't have that much of a problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I still prefer that anyway.
So we have a handful of turners in here tonight, and since I'm trying to learn a little bit about this, Rich, maybe you can put your 2 cents in as well. If I wanted to buy a good, not, I don't have to go overboard, but a solid set of turning tools, what are the the top tools that you recommend I purchase first? And I'm talking, I want to make bowls as well as turn spindles. So what would be a good solid way to start? Am I buying 5 tools? Am I buying 10? And which ones do you think would be a good?
Usually you'll buy a good bowl gouge. A decent set of tools, I would say, is you need 2 bowl gouges. You need a 1/2 inch and a 5/8. You're definitely going to want a scraper, and I like the little round nose scraper. I don't know where I'm at here. I like this one. You're going to need
Hey, guys, just so anybody's watching, we get a little bit of distortion in the feed once in a while. It goes right away like it just did. We keep getting that every once in a while. About 10 seconds of that weird camera distortion pops up, Rich. So now we can see again now. What were you showing us?
Okay, so the bowl gouges, like I just sharpened, I would definitely get a 1/2 inch and a 5/8 inch, and I'd choose to sharpen those at a different profile. Another good tool to start with is a scraper, just a round nose scraper, and we're going to get into sharpening this here shortly. And a roughing spindle gouge. The thing is, with a roughing spindle gouge, you absolutely do not use this on a bowl. I mean, you only use it on spindles. That's when the grain is running with the bedways. If you get this into cross grain, side grain, it's gonna explode on you. Break your piece, go into your gut. It's not a good way to get liposuction. So those are the best, and then gonna have to sharpen that one again. And then a smaller spindle gouge. That's probably be what's going to be in your set. A decent scraper, a couple bowl gouges, and a spindle gouge. I very rarely use my spindle gouge. I use my bowl gouges on everything: spindles, bowls, plates.
All right.
you name it.
Just a real quick heads up, Rich. Your second camera in the background has got us looking at your rear end now. Not that that's a bad look. I'm just saying.
Well, let me modify that a little bit.
Excuse me.
There, that's better. Okay, where we at? I got them all to sharpen, so we'll start with the roughing gouge. This is the brute. This is the workhorse of your collection. Doing big logs and whatnot, this is what's going to turn it around. You can do delicate work with it, but not often. This, I don't use a jig. I just do, I'll color that in. I just do it by hand. And very rarely do I actually use this one on the Whetstone. I usually just pull out the other grinder, the other slow speed grinder, and get after it. But that one makes a whole lot of noise, and we don't want to do that right now.
Rich, how long have you been turning now?
I've been turning off and on for about 7 years. I've been doing a lot of turning for about 2 years. Or I should say I've owned a lathe for about 7 years and have done a lot of turning in the last 2.
Yeah, Steve says, get a skew, but don't give up when you get the first catch with it. To be fair, Steve, I've done some turning in the past. I'm by no means efficient at it, and the skew has always been my nemesis. I did get this one. I was turning a lot on a smaller. When I say a lot, on a smaller lathe, and I did kind of get the feel of a skew towards the end of that couple of months, and I didn't use it often. I did already. Rich, Steve is asking, how are you confident with the skew now? Do you find the skew a useful tool?
No, skews scare me.
There's your answer.
But yeah, a skew is a beautiful tool, and if you really know how to use a skew, I mean, you can do a lot of damage really quick and do just, I mean, you can turn a bead or a ball, or, you know, a skew and spindle is your best friend. Me and skews don't get along most of the time. I do have my days, but most of the time, me and a skew do not get along.
No, I have a friend of mine who makes window chairs, Peter Galbert. He swears up and down by a skew, and he's also, you know, he also said that it's one of the hardest lathe tools to use. Get used to it.
Yeah, like I said,
I've seen him go down some quasi green material, and I mean the finish was so smooth you didn't even have to touch it with sandpaper.
Right. Yeah, skews are beautiful if you can if you take the time to learn it. I've never taken that time to learn it. I've had a few really bad catches with skews that just scare me.
Gotcha. I wonder if there's a difference between, I imagine there has to be, skew work in more green material than rather drier material. I imagine it affects it a lot differently, the use of a skew.
Not really.
No? Okay.
No. I mean, you'll have to go back, green material, you'll have to go back over and sand, or dry material you wouldn't, but that's, you know, that's with any tool.
Okay.
But it cuts, I mean, it cuts just as good, if not better. Most of your tools cut better in green wood.
Jerry says, I find that using a skew means a lot of tool rest adjustments. So, and then Mark Eaton says he uses I use my skew to make all my pens. I master it by practicing on 2x4s. Cool.
Now, see, that's awesome. I probably should spend the next couple of weeks just playing with a skew, but like I said, it scares me.
Mitchell Bailey's asking how you're liking your Grizzly lathe, and he has the same model.
I like the lathe. The only issues I've had with it, I've had to replace the variable speed knob but they sent me another one. After that, it's just fine. Yeah, no issues.
Cool.
Little fit and finish, but you know, I'm going to tear it up anyway, so that doesn't really matter.
Right.
So now we're gonna move on to the little diamond or parting tool. This is just like a small scraper. Can't really do much detail work with it. I mean, you can do a little, but it's mostly just for either parting off or making your tenons and flattening up the bottom of, you know, a mortise and stuff like that, but still needs to be sharp. And this is really easy, and this is where that, see if you can pick that up. It's definitely a hollow grind.
Like on that parting tool, could you sharpen that on a flat stone?
Yes. But it doesn't have to be all that. It doesn't have to be all that sharp. For the most part, I mean, you want it sharp, but it doesn't have to be razor sharp.
Okay.
I find the most important thing with this is keeping it flat.
You mean the cutting edge, the cutting edge flat?
Yeah, keeping it square, I guess, would be a better choice. See, that'll well, that did cut me. So we know this one's going to be really good for a while. And then a quick little jab on the
B. Blair, thanks for jumping in tonight. Have a good evening.
honing wheel. So those are your basic tools. The ones that, you know, I use most of the time. I have different sizes in all of them. But that's just, you know, basically how easy it is. So I sharpen 5 tools in, you know, just a few minutes. Then you go into your specialty tools, which are, you know, scrapers and stuff like that. They're not really special. And then you have custom tools like this one, which is a spindle gouge that I have really ground down. And this is the tool I use for my finials. When I get a finial off of this tool, I don't have to sand it, and I can turn down to a fiber on pine. If you've seen some of my finial videos, then you've seen that. And this one also gets sharpened by hand, and it gets modified depending on what I want it to do that particular day. And it always gets buffed out on the wheel. So there wasn't a whole lot to talk about on that one. I think that's about it. We got scrapers. Where's that round nose? Round nose scraper. Secret to a scraper is it's kind of like a card scraper. It's actually the burr that you produce on the top edge that's doing the cutting. This I have ground to a negative rake scraper, which means I simply lowered, I can't see if you can see that. I simply lowered the top, put another bevel in here. That way I can hold it flat in the workpiece and not have to tilt down like you normally do with a scraper.
Oh, okay, cool. Mark, something like gouge and parting tool without a jig. I'm going to give it a try. Cool.
Without a jig? Maybe I only heard like part of that.
Maybe I'm reading it wrong. I'm going to give sharpening my gouge and parting tool without a jig.
Oh,
a try, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, the parting, well, the gouge, the roughing gouge and the parting tool both, and even a lot of your spindle gouges, they have such a square profile that as long as you get the initial bevel right, you can just you know, rock it back and forth. Because you're not going real far in on the heel, and like I said, it's you know, it's flat across for the most part
Right
on your roughing anyway. Now your your smaller gouges, your smaller spindle gouges like this one, this is a 1/2-inch spindle gouge. I put a little wing on that. That's just so I can do a little bit of pull cut, you know, I get a little more mobility out of it without having it catch. I guess to some of you, and Izzy, you might not know this, so we'll go through this real quick before we call it a day. All right, difference between a spindle gouge. I'm going to see if you can see.
Yeah, we can see it pretty well.
And a bowl gouge. So if you can tell the difference in the flutes there, spindle gouge has a really wide flute. And the reason why you don't use a spindle gouge on a bowl or side grain is because the flute's so wide, you're very apt to get a catch and destroy your piece and your tool and your toe if it just happens to fall that way. So that's why you don't use even with the really sharp wing on it. I mean, you could use it. Like I said, this is a spindle gouge that's been modified. Even with that wing, I wouldn't use that on a bowl or side grain piece. That's what the bowl gouge is for. And they always have a much narrower flute. I don't know how else to describe that.
Well, you can see it very obviously, the difference between the two. It's like a narrower and taller flute.
Right. And like this is a smaller bowl gouge that I have an extremely large wing on.
So it's almost like you can use the edge of it as a cutting tool rather than the point of it as a cutting tool.
The edge on a bowl gouge is actually what you're cutting with a lot of the time.
Okay.
You're hardly, I can't say you're hardly cutting with the edge. At the bottom of the bowl, you're definitely cutting with an edge. But when you're hollowing a bowl out, you're usually cutting with, let me see if my big finger's not a very good pointer. When you're hollowing a bowl, you're cutting with this part of the blade. You know, depending on how you have it sharpened, but you're cutting with the wing. When you go to the bottom of the bowl, you're going to be cutting more with the nose of your blade.
Okay.
So the wing is very important, and you can do a lot of pull cuts, shear scrapes, push cuts. Like I said, most of my cutting is done with the wings. Oh, shit! Got to sharpen that one again too. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, the one I use the most is at a 40-degree angle with the long wing. My bottom feeders have anywhere from a 60-degree angle, 55 to 60-degree angle. Some of them have a 45-degree angle, the real small ones, and those are for the real tight curves.
Right on.
But I typically use, one sharpened to a 40-degree and one sharpened to a 60-degree. And I use the 40-degree with the large wing more than any other chisel that I have or tool that I have. And I can show you a demonstration. So I bought these at the same time. Maybe I should use the other one. Maybe I can do this. All right. So I bought these at the same time. This one has about 1.5 inches more steel on it than the one I use constantly. That has a 60-degree bevel. So I use that for big bowls as the bottom, and use this one for the rest.
All right.
Those have been my major questions that I always get asked. So that's that. Anything else I can help you all with?
Guys, if you have any more questions, throw them out there. I'll ask Rich real quick. That was very educational for me, Rich. Thanks for doing that, man.
Well, you're welcome, sir.
Now I want to get that grizzly system and give it a shot for my bench chisels as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I sharpen everything on it, and the blade on it, or the wheel on it, so wide. The only thing I can't sharpen on there in one pass is my big hand plane blade.
Mark Eaton wants to know what the Powerball numbers are going to be.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. There's not going to be whatever I chose. I can tell you that.
Billy, we kind of talked about that a little bit before you got here. He was asking if you used any carbide tools. You want to touch on that again real quick, Rich?
Yeah, I can grab the ones I always use. Hang on just a second.
Steve's asking, is there much to resetting the jig between the wheel as the wheel reduces? Yeah. Steve, I don't think so, because he uses a template, format template, so every time he resets the jig, it doesn't matter that it's been reduced, it still follows the recommended angle, right? Is that right, Rich?
I have you on my headphones, so I don't echo, so I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, Steve was asking, is there much to resetting the jig as the wheel reduces? So as the size of the grind wheel reduces, is it hard to reset the jig?
It is not. Let me swing this back over, and if you're looking in to get the Tormek system.
Mr. Nick Ferry just jumped in and said, hey.
Hello, Ferry. So the Grizzly setup is the same as the Tormek setup. It's just a lot cheaper and, not as fit and finished. But all the hardware is the same. So as your wheels go down, like if I want a 45-degree angle, it tells you right here what you're doing. So you're going to put it in hole A. You're just going to put that on there, set it right on the wheel, move your slide until the two metal parts touch, and you're set up. So as the wheel falls down, you just, it's always the same, whether it's a huge wheel or a small wheel, as long as these 2 points line up, then, you're set at the right angle, or really, really close to the right angle.
Jerry says he's really starting to like these live things.
I would like them a lot more if I can figure out how to do them correctly without having cables and wires run all over my house.
Get yourself a wireless Corsair headphone and you'll be all good to go.
Yeah, I did the Bluetooth, and that doesn't work out very well.
Oh, well, Corsair's Wi-Fi. Works over a Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. But so far, it's better than not.
Right, absolutely.
The other really the only carbide tools I use are just the gooseneck for hollowing on the around the neck of a vessel.
So that would be for like a vase where the opening is a little smaller than the actual inside of the body. Right.
Yeah. So when you got to do kind of an undercut or get in when your hole's too small for your tool to be maneuvered correctly, you use a gooseneck. And all goosenecks are some sort of scraper. Carbide just seems to last a little longer. Well, does last a little longer because it's carbide. But generally, if I can get away without using the scraper, then I prefer to cut and not scrape.
Do you have a favorite brand of chisel? JP Woodworks is asking. Jamie's asking.
I own more Benjamin's Best than any, and that's a newbie low end type steel, but very affordable. I like the feel of them. I do have 2 Thompson chisels that I adore because you don't have to sharpen them very often. I'll only have to sharpen that twice, where I would have to sharpen like a Benjamin's Best 5-6 times. So that's just quality of steel, and they're real affordable too. So all my next purchases will only be the Thompson steel for the foreseeable future, anyway.
Right on.
But Benjamin's Best, if you're just starting, you don't want to drop, several several $100 on tools, then you know, you can pick up a set of Benjamin's Best for like $50.
You mean Lee Nielsen doesn't make any turning tools?
They probably do, but I would be scared to know what the price on them are. I mean, they can get outrageous. I've seen tools for, you know, $700-800, and I just don't understand why.
For one,
but
one tool?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I've never used one, so I can't tell you if they're that much better, but
ouch.
I don't have a problem going through a $30 tool in a couple years. I'd have a problem going through a couple $100 tool in a couple years. Know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Comment section slowed down, but that was really cool. I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, thank you for reading the comments and participating in my little show.
Well, I am good for some things. Reading, I'm not great at reading, but I struggle. I get through it okay.
Oh, that's all right. You can make up the questions. I don't even know if anyone was watching, so what are you going to do?
Oh, no, there's people watching.
So I think that's probably about it, unless there's anything else. I think the next one I got some glue ups happening for a segmented piece. I might try that next weekend.
All right, cool. Well, count me in if you want someone to read the narrative for you.
All right, sir. I will.
All right.
All right. Well, let me hit the button over here.
All right, sounds good. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight.
All right, y'all have a wonderful evening.